We were playing Truth or Dare. Cole, my fiancée Jasmine's ex, turned to her with that smug, unreadable look and asked, "If Ethan weren't in the picture, would you take me back?" She didn't hesitate. Yes. One word. That was all it took to suck the air out of the room. Everyone froze. Eyes shifted to me like we were in a damn courtroom waiting for a verdict. They expected me to explode. To flip the table, curse them out, walk out like some betrayed lover in a movie. But I didn't. I didn't even flinch. Instead, I smiled and said, "Well, the wedding's not for a while. I'm generous like that, why don't I step aside and let you two have at it?" Exactly 1 week earlier, Cole had flown back into the country. Jasmine insisted on picking him up from the airport herself. That same day, my father, Thomas, was diagnosed with severe coronary artery disease. The doctor said he needed immediate bypass surgery. No delays. No options. I was already unraveling when I called her. My voice cracked from stress and fear, and I snapped, blamed her for not understanding what actually mattered. But Jasmine didn't comfort me. She snapped back. Accused me of using the situation as an excuse to lash out. Her voice was sharp, cold, almost disgusted. Not a trace of concern. Then she hung up. Blocked me. Just like that. For the first time, I felt like I didn't know the woman I was about to marry. We'd had fights before, plenty. But I was always the one who folded first. Always the one apologizing, even when I didn't know what I was sorry for. Terrified of losing her, of pushing too far. But this time, when she blocked me, something in me didn't panic. I didn't grovel. I didn't chase. I just went quiet. 3 days passed. Then my mother, Linda, called. She said Jasmine had been crying. I knew exactly what that meant. It was Jasmine's way of giving me an out. Her version of an olive branch, never, "I'm sorry," never owning her part, but always some silent signal that I was expected to make the first move. It was always like that with her. She'd stay quiet, let me come crawling back. Then, just when I thought we were okay, she'd look at me with that smug, almost playful expression and ask, "So? Do you know what you did wrong?" That night, she'd curl up beside me like a cat, lazy, teasing, knowing she'd won. From the day I started pursuing her, that's how it always went. I gave everything. But it was never a two-way street. With Jasmine, love meant bending, adapting, making myself smaller just to keep her happy. Like if I stopped tiptoeing around her moods, the whole thing would fall apart. And maybe I was okay with that, for a while. But yesterday, when she said, "Linda didn't even get mad at me, so maybe you should stop overreacting too," something in me cracked. Not anger. Not heartbreak. Imbalance. Like I'd finally realized just how uneven everything had always been. Jasmine never understood what that day felt like for me, standing outside the operating room, heart pounding, hands shaking, completely alone. Yes, I'm a man. But I'm also a son. And in that moment, I wasn't looking for strength. I just needed her, to sit beside me, to let me lean on her, even for a second. Instead, what I got was distance. Cold words. A message on my phone. "Babe, do you remember what tomorrow is?" Of course I remembered. It was the anniversary of our engagement, 3 years. I'd never once forgotten. Every year, I'd spend weeks planning the perfect night. Finding the best hotel in the city. Buying her favorite makeup. Jewelry. Designer bags. But it was never enough. To Jasmine, it was all too predictable. Too practical. Too uninspired. Because how could anything I do compete with one carefully timed birthday post from Cole on Instagram? A single sentence, filtered and captioned just right, always seemed to mean more than everything I gave. When I didn't reply right away, she thought I'd forgotten. She texted again, teasing. "Fine, just wait at home like a good boy. I'll make it up to you." I answered with one word. "Okay." Then I set the phone down and went back to reviewing a client's quarterly report. A year ago, her message would have made me smile. I would have cleared my whole evening just to make sure the roses were perfect, the wine decanted, the lighting soft. But now? Nothing. At 6, Jasmine messaged again. "Don't forget the wine and candles. Be good. Wait for me." So I waited. 7. 8. 9. Midnight. Still no sign of her. I called, twice, then 4 times. No answer. Worry gnawed at me. Maybe she'd been in an accident. Maybe something had happened. I opened Instagram to check if Chloe, her best friend, had posted anything. Maybe they were together. That's when I saw it. Cole's story. Set to close friends only. Just me. Most important person in my life. The caption sat above a photo of a Rolex, my Rolex. The one I'd been eyeing for months. Jasmine had even come with me once to try it on. It took me a second to process the image. Then something in me, some delicate, exhausted part, just cracked. And then, slowly, reassembled. Piece by piece. Stronger. Colder. Lighter. I stared at that watch and realized, maybe for the first time. To Jasmine, Cole would always come first. And the strangest part? I didn't even care anymore. It was past midnight. Somewhere between sleep and waking, I heard the front door creak open. Footsteps. Soft. Familiar. Then the scent, hers. Jasmine. She slid under the covers, wrapped her arms around me from behind. Her breath tickled the back of my neck. Then she leaned in, lips brushing close. But before she could kiss me, I turned my head, instinctively. Not angry. Not deliberate. Just, reflex. We both froze. She paused for a moment, then pulled away without a word and hurried into the bathroom. I could hear the shower start, the door click shut. But she'd left her phone on the bed. It lit up with message after message. Cole. Are you home yet? Jasmine. Almost. Cole. I can't stop thinking about you. She hadn't replied. I scrolled up. They talked every day. I didn't dig deeper, I didn't need to. Just watching the endless stream of messages flicker across the screen was enough to make my skin crawl. The vibration wouldn't stop. Annoyed, I grabbed the phone and, without aiming, tossed it onto the couch across the room. Clean shot. There was a time when those late-night chats drove me mad with jealousy. I'd confront her, ask why they were still so close. I thought I was being honest. Vulnerable. She thought I was being possessive. Immature. Said I didn't respect her as a partner. But what about her respect for me? What about boundaries? I used to argue. Plead. Now, I didn't even have the energy to raise my voice. A few minutes later, Jasmine came out in silk pajamas, her hair damp, skin flushed from the shower. She spotted her phone on the couch and stiffened. Did you go through my phone? I yawned. Do you know what time it is? She walked to the nightstand, unscrewed the cap from a half-finished bottle of red, and took a slow sip. There's nothing going on with Cole. I nodded. Rolled over. Closed my eyes. And for the first time, there was no follow-up. No string of explanations. No desperate half-truths dressed up as damage control. Just silence. Then a sigh. And finally, peace. I didn't scream. Didn't demand accountability or draw new lines in the sand. What was the point? She'd already erased every line I drew. Stepped past every boundary I tried to hold up. To her, my breaking points were nothing but punchlines. And I was just tired. Tired of giving, tired of waiting. Of investing everything and watching it vanish into a void. There comes a moment when the thread finally snaps. Quietly. Without fanfare. And in that moment, I turned away. Not to punish her. Not to test her. But because I'd finally chosen me. The next morning, I woke up to find the bed beside me still empty. Jasmine had moved to the guest room, at some point in the night, quietly, like a ghost. When I came out, she was already up. She didn't look at me right away. Just pointed to a suit draped over the chair. "Ethan, it's for you." I glanced at it. Then laughed, dryly. "I won't even get into the color or cut. But the size? Come on. At least make it look like you bought it for me. Not like you're handing down something meant for Cole." I slipped on my shoes and headed toward the door. She stepped in front of me, blocking the handle. "It's not what you think. He broke up with someone, he was wrecked. Drinking alone at some bar, I found him totally blacked out. I dropped him off at a hotel and he threw up all over himself." I tilted my head, amused. "So, his clothes got dirty, and you, what, bought him a new suit?" Her mouth opened. No sound. I continued. "And to comfort him, you gave him the watch too?" She flinched. "And after he sobered up, he had enough strength to post that little Rolex love note on Instagram, just for me to see. That's when you finally came home?" Her voice sharpened. "Do you have to twist it like that?" Her eyes welled with something between anger and injury. "Why do you always say things so cruelly?" I stared at her, deadpan. "Then how should I say it, Jasmine?" She didn't answer. Just stood there, speechless, jaw tight, eyes wide, like I'd just accused her of something she couldn't refute but wouldn't admit. Like somehow, I was the one being unreasonable. Again. Jasmine was truly pissed this time. We still lived under the same roof, but we might as well have been strangers. 2 bedrooms. 2 lives. The only thing tying us together was a cat. Sonny. We adopted him together, back when things still felt easy. Back when I'd made my clumsy little confession, "Let's raise something together." She smiled, nodded, and that was how I proposed. I fed him. She cleaned the litter box. That was our love language. But lately, Jasmine came home later and later, sometimes not at all. So I started keeping Sonny in my room. He didn't like it. He missed her. He'd sit in front of her closed laptop, pawing at the screen like he was waiting for her to log back into his life. He didn't speak. But I understood the quiet betrayal in his posture. I felt it too. Then something unexpected happened. Cole texted me. "You can have the watch back. No need to be petty, man." I didn't reply. I have this thing, call it psychological hygiene. If something's mine, it's mine. If someone else touches it without permission, it's already ruined. Then another message. That night, I was at my lowest. Everyone was laughing behind my back, saying my marriage was a joke. I didn't know who else to call. Don't blame Jasmine. I stared at the screen. Let it sit. Then, maybe out of spite. Maybe just because I'd had enough. I texted back. "So what? Your entire family and all your friends disappeared, and my fiancé was the only one left on earth?" Seconds later, Jasmine burst out of the guest room, phone in hand, fire in her eyes. "What the hell is wrong with you? That's how you talk to Cole? We're done, Ethan. We're over." The last time Jasmine said she wanted to break up. It was over a crystal glass. Cole had given it to her, some limited edition piece she claimed was irreplaceable. And I, stupidly, knocked it off the shelf one morning while reaching for my keys. She tore into me. Loud, mean, relentless. I tried to calm her down. "I'll buy you the exact same one," I offered. She snapped. "Do you even understand what that glass meant to me?" Then came the text. Just 2 words. "We're done." I called her, frantic. Could barely form words, my throat catching between pleas. At one point, I started to cry. There was silence on the other end. Then she said, flatly, "Are you seriously crying? You're a man." She didn't have to finish the sentence. Too emotional. Pathetic. Weak. I filled in the blanks myself. I swallowed hard. Got it. Hung up. And in that moment, it felt like someone had poured wet cement into my chest. By the time it hardened, I couldn't feel anything at all. With Cole, Jasmine was always a different person. He was her soft spot. Her blind spot. Her sacred cow. Any criticism, any suspicion, any boundary I dared suggest, she'd meet it like I was stepping on a landmine. But so what? It didn't matter anymore. Not to me. I kept asking myself, what was I, really? Why was I killing myself to live up to a standard I could never reach? So when Jasmine started posting carefully curated candids with Cole on Instagram, just subtle enough to deny, just obvious enough to hurt, I didn't even flinch. She'd tag him fixing her laptop, holding her iced coffee. They wore matching sneakers, by accident. He saved her a parking spot. She brought him lunch. Picked up his dry cleaning. Proofread his pitch deck. Then came the business trips, 3 cities in 5 days. No calls. No texts. No explanation. She wasn't even hiding it anymore. And honestly, even the deepest love starts to fade when it's left to starve. Eventually, someone else noticed. Alice, a mutual friend, invited us to a dinner party. Her subtle way of forcing us into the same room again. I used to be the guy who showed up early. Polished. On time. That night, I walked in 30 minutes late. Cole was already there, drink in hand. He gave me that smirk he always wore when he thought he'd won something. Well, look who finally showed up. Rare sighting. I looked him dead in the eye. Funny thing is, he's late all the time. I've seen him miss birthdays, cancel last minute, leave people waiting. But Jasmine? She always defended him. He just got off a long-haul flight, Ethan. He's jet-lagged. Cut him some slack. Me? No excuses allowed. I just smiled. It's on me tonight. I'll cover the bill. The restaurant was packed. They had to split us between 2 tables. Which, in a way, felt right. Because the space between us had never been wider. Without needing to say a word, we fell into place. Alice sat with me. Across from us, Jasmine took her seat beside Cole. I flagged down the waiter and ordered a plate of chili cheese fries. Cole's favorite. Before the server could turn away, Jasmine chimed in, casual, automatic. No onions. I paused. Funny. The first time the 3 of us had dinner together, Jasmine was all about onions. I even made a point to request extra, trying to be thoughtful. She barely touched the plate. Gave me a faint scowl. Then turned to the server and said, sweet as ever. Could we get another one, please? No onions. Cole had laughed. See, Ethan? That's Jasmine. Always paying attention. I remember clenching my jaw. She defended me politely, he didn't know. Don't blame him. But something about that moment stuck. The way Cole looked so smug. The way Jasmine quietly erased my effort like it didn't matter. After that night, I stopped ordering onions. Every single time. Alice, trying to lighten the mood, grinned. Do guys just universally hate onions or something? Jasmine glanced at me. Blinked. It hit her, I think, right then. Why, after all these years, every meal I ordered came without onions. She had simply picked them out for Cole. I had quietly stopped eating them, for her. She was never the thoughtful one they all said she was. Not really. Not with me. She just wasn't thoughtful for me. That truth had sat in the back of my throat for years like a splinter. And Cole. God, he never had to try. Every move he made, every smug little quip, every glance, every Instagram post, felt like a dull knife dragged across my chest, over and over. And he always played it innocent. Just like tonight. Dinner was over, the wine had dulled everyone's edges. Alice suggested Jasmine and I ride home together. But Cole wasn't finished. He wanted to play truth or dare. The bottle spun, slow and theatrical, until it landed on him. He leaned back, eyes glinting with that particular brand of pettiness, then looked Jasmine square in the eye. If Ethan wasn't in the picture, would we ever get back together? He said it like a challenge. Like a claim. Like he was planting a flag. Everyone fell silent. And Jasmine? She nodded. Slowly. Deliberately. Yes. Gasps. Eyes shifting in my direction. Alice reached under the table, tugged gently at the sleeve of my shirt, like she was bracing for the blow-up. But I just smiled. Cool. Light. Untouched. Well, I said. We're not married yet. Guess I'll be the bigger person. You can have her. The night ended in disaster. And for once, it wasn't because of me. At the other table, two friends suddenly stood up, loud, furious. One of them pointed straight at Cole. You keep hiding behind the word friendship, but the way you two act? You're not fooling anyone. Jasmine hadn't even turned pale yet. Cole hadn't said a word in his defense. The other friend chimed in, just as pissed. Next time, don't invite me to this kind of circus. Soulmates? Please. Emotional cheating is still cheating. I said nothing. I'd spoken those same words before. More than once. Back then, Cole never had to defend himself. Jasmine always jumped in, shielding him like a loyal bodyguard. Every time it happened, it gutted me. Not because it was new. But because it wasn't. Now the blade no longer cut. The wounds had long since scarred over. Alice had meant well. She always did. But this dinner? It was a lost cause. They took the car and headed east. I went west and took the subway. No one looked back. Out of everyone, I felt the most removed. Like I was floating above it all. Detached. There was a soft ache in my chest, but not pain. Something quieter. Like placing a once-loved object into storage. Something you didn't want to throw away. Something that had never brought joy. Something you'd never use again. At my station, I got off and walked home. A breeze brushed against my skin, cool and sharp. A single leaf let go of its branch and spun through the air in a slow, final descent. Natural. Decisive. A quiet omen of things ending. Maybe it was time to let go of Jasmine. I wasn't angry. Just tired. Finally ready. I started thinking about how I'd bring it up, how I'd frame the ending so it wouldn't spiral into one last performance. But when I unlocked the door, I stopped short. She was already home. Sitting silently in the living room, legs crossed, hands still. Jasmine looked up and spoke first, rare for her. "You seemed to be in a good mood while I was away." I shrugged. "You were busy." "So was I." She was fishing for something. Picking at threads. I had no desire to bite. "Cole insisted on coming, you know." That made me pause. She was explaining. The irony stung a little, not painfully, but enough to register. For years, whenever she was with Cole, I spiraled. Now that I didn't react, she suddenly felt the need to justify herself. It was kind of funny, really. "Makes sense," I said dryly. "He is your soulmate, right?" I wanted the conversation to end. But she hesitated. Fidgeted. Wavered between guilt and pride. Old me would have pounced, pushed, questioned, demanded answers. Now? I just sat there. Nothing. And that emptiness was louder than any outburst could have been. Finally, she spoke again. "There's something I want to talk to you about." "Go ahead." I tried to keep my voice even. Tried not to sound like I was already halfway out the door. She bit her lower lip, eyes darting to the floor. "Cole's my best friend," she began. "He's been applying for jobs since he got back, but hotels aren't really ideal." I didn't need her to finish the sentence. She wanted Cole to move in. I was already rehearsing how to say no, firmly, but without igniting another Cold War, when the doorbell rang. 3 knocks. Then the sound of shuffling, dragging. Luggage. Cole. Already here. Blood pounded in my ears. So this was never a real conversation. The decision had already been made. All that talk about talking it through was just her way of softening the blow. I turned to head back into the bedroom. If they wanted to play house, fine. As long as they didn't invade my space, I'd ride it out until I could walk away clean. But Jasmine grabbed my arm. "Cole's allergic to cat fur," she said. I looked at her, confused. "What does that have to do with me?" She hesitated. Then her voice shifted, flat, final. "Can you take Sunny and stay somewhere else for a few days?" The silence that followed felt sharp. Pressurized. Then, it happened. I laughed. Not from amusement. Not even from disbelief. That kind of laugh that only comes when you've gone numb from fury. It's real, I thought. That thing people say, when you get so angry you just laugh. Jasmine flinched. "Ethan, don't get the wrong idea." Cole, meanwhile, was already unzipping his suitcase like he lived there. "Look, I know I've been kind of in the way lately. I'll disappear as soon as I find a job, I swear." That smug little performance, like he was the victim in all this, set my teeth on edge. "Get out." 3 words. Quiet. Precise. Lethal. They blinked, stunned. Like they hadn't actually expected me to react. Jasmine found her voice first. "Ethan, I've already compromised." Her tone softened as she registered the heat rising off me. "It's just temporary. A few days, and then." I cut her off. Sharp. Cold. Final. "This is my house." She blinked. I could almost see the illusion cracking. "I believe I still have veto power," I added. Calm. Icy. She was silent for a long time. Then her expression shifted, hard, brittle. The kind of anger that comes not from being hurt, but from losing control. "Fine," she said, voice clipped. "It's not the only house we have. Just don't come crying later when you get jealous again." And then, just like that, she grabbed Cole's hand. Walked out. I stood there, watching their backs disappear down the hallway. But my mind was somewhere else. Trying to remember the last time I'd actually felt jealous. It wasn't until the door slammed shut behind them that I realized. That sound used to come from me. Last time, it was my hand that hit the wood. My voice raised. My anger spilling over. I'd walked in on the two of them at a bar, half drunk and fully oblivious. Clinking glasses. Arms draped over shoulders. Eyes lingering just a beat too long. I almost threw a punch. After the fallout, Jasmine gave me the silent treatment. And Cole? He didn't need words. That smirk, the one that flickered at the corners of his mouth like he was playing some inside joke, said enough. Now, it was them who stormed out. But this time, I didn't burn. I didn't boil. This time, it felt like relief. Like a knot I'd carried for years had finally been untied. I typed out a message, just 2 words. Wish you well. Pressed send. A red exclamation mark flashed back. Blocked. Maybe still blocked from before. Or maybe she unblocked me just long enough to watch me squirm, then shut the door again. Didn't matter. I was about to call her anyway when my phone rang. Daniel. Jasmine's father. His voice came in quick, panicked. It's Rebecca. Routine checkup found a mass. Uterine tumor. It looks serious. I dropped everything. By the time I arrived at the hospital, Jasmine was already there, face streaked with tears, eyes swollen, body trembling. The moment she saw me, she collapsed into my chest. I stiffened. For a second, I didn't move. Then I wrapped my arms around her. Held her. Grounded her. I'm here, I said quietly. You're not alone. Within an hour, I had called in every favor I had from the law firm. Got her mother an emergency consult with the best specialists in the city. They operated immediately. The surgery went better than anyone had expected. But even then, Cole couldn't help himself. He texted Jasmine several times during the recovery. First. Job market sucks. Nothing's biting. Then. Wanna grab dinner? Finally, after hearing Rebecca's tumor was benign. Maybe it's time to hire a caregiver? That last one broke something. Jasmine stood in the hallway outside the ICU, phone in hand, voice rising. Do you even understand what it felt like to sign that surgery consent form? I was shaking. I turned. Stared. That tone. She'd never used it with Cole before. Do you know I cried non-stop outside that or, she shouted into the phone. Then she glanced up and saw me standing a few feet away. Something shifted in her face, like a fog lifting. Her voice softened. Ethan. I think I finally get it. I think I was wrong. Wrong. 2 syllables I'd waited years to hear. But by then, those words felt like something from a dream, one I couldn't remember upon waking. There was a time I might have clung to that apology. Used it like a lifeline. Not anymore. That same week, while on leave to help Rebecca recover, I finally made another overdue decision. I had my wisdom tooth removed. The one that had sat there for 9 years, pushing against the healthy ones, flaring up, then going quiet just long enough to make me forget the pain. 30 minutes in the chair. Forceps. A mallet. A grinding sound that reverberated straight through my skull. But when it was done, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. Clear. Unburdened. That tooth had grown sideways, stubborn, invasive. Just like her. I'd let it stay, afraid of the pain that might come from removing it. But eventually, the real pain was in keeping it. So whether Jasmine understood her mistakes or not. Whether she wanted to make things right or not. I didn't care. Not anymore. I was done. With the bargaining. With the guilt. With the idea of us. She wasn't worth the ache anymore. Rebecca was discharged a week later. I insisted she come stay at the house for a few days, to recover in comfort, under care. As I moved around the kitchen, preparing tea, fluffing pillows, adjusting the thermostat, she sat quietly, watching me. Eventually, her voice caught. "Ethan." She blinked quickly, trying to compose herself. "Seeing how you take care of her, I feel at peace. If Jasmine marries you, I won't worry." A tight ache twisted in my chest. I smiled to hide it. "I'll stay elsewhere for a few days," I said. "There's the cat, and your health comes first." But Rebecca waved it off with a laugh. "What's a little cat hair? I don't mind at all." She leaned in, conspiratorially soft. "You know, Daniel's allergic too. Has been for years. I just made him take antihistamines." Then she looked at me, gentle, sharp, knowing. When someone's precious to you, you don't throw them out to accommodate someone else. Across the room, Jasmine opened her mouth, then closed it again. Head down. Silent. I went to pack my things. Jasmine followed me. Said nothing. I didn't acknowledge her. Just kept folding shirts, tucking away socks, wrapping chargers. I gently placed Sonny in his carrier. She stood by the door, blocking my exit, holding on to that last thread of pride. "Ethan," she said. "Stop being dramatic." I reached for the doorknob. She didn't move. She wanted an answer. One I no longer owed her. I tried to push past. She resisted. Then, out of nowhere, she snapped. Fists flying. Tears mixing with rage. Sobbing as she hit me, again and again, with the soft, open-palmed violence of someone losing control. I caught her wrists. Held them still. And then I froze. There it was. A silver ring. On her left hand. Her ring finger. I'd given her rings before, gold, diamond, even custom-engraved ones. But never silver. Never. I'd told her once, years ago, half joking, fully serious. "Your ring finger only wears what I give you." Silver was too casual. Too careless. Something anyone could buy. Something anyone could give. And now it was there. Mocking me. Worn without hesitation. I let go of her wrists. Took a step back. A strange, bitter calm washed over me. "Move." She blinked. Stilled. "Ethan, wait, it's not what you think." She glanced down at her hand, suddenly aware of the betrayal written in plain metal. "Cole said hospitals are too depressing. He said I should wear something that makes me feel lighter." I didn't speak. I pulled out my phone. Opened Instagram. Found Cole's page. Turned the screen toward her. Held it up. There it was. His own silver ring. Same design. Same finger. Like a badge. Like a brand. Another twisted little game he played to make sure I always knew where I stood, with her, and with him. He liked watching me choke on restraint. He liked the quiet domination of it. Over and over again. And I let it happen. Jasmine stared at the screen, eyes hollow. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she whispered. "It's just a silver ring. It doesn't mean anything." I looked at her one last time. Really looked. Saw the guilt. The confusion. The little girl lost in a maze she helped build. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. Didn't even sigh. I stepped around her. Opened the door. And walked out, steady, clean, done. Jasmine and I returned to silence. Not the cold kind. Just absence. No texts. No calls. No sudden ambushes of emotion. Just space. And in that space, I threw myself into work. For weeks, I barely looked up from my desk. My calendar was packed, my inbox cleared with near-obsessive precision. Then, one afternoon, my boss, Mark, called me into his office. He smiled. Extended his hand. "Congratulations, Ethan. We're making you partner." It happened to fall on my birthday. 2 wins in one day. I told the team I was renting out a venue, nothing over the top, just drinks, music, a chance to let loose. The group cheered. A few high fives. Someone ordered champagne. My phone buzzed. Jasmine. At some point, she'd added me back. "Rebecca went home this morning," her message read. "Thank you for the gifts." I thought for a second before replying. "Of course. I've been too busy to stop by and see your parents. Please tell them I'm sorry." A few minutes later, she called. "It's your birthday," she said softly. "I made a few of your favorite dishes. You want to come home? Bring Sunny?" "No thanks," I said. "My coworkers are throwing me something." A pause. Then, cautious. "Can I come too?" "Not a good idea." My tone was flat. Certain. I didn't owe her a performance. Not anymore. There was a time I'd tag along to her gatherings like a leashed dog, eager, devoted, just happy to be nearby. Until one night, she pulled me aside with an exasperated look. "If I didn't invite you, don't come. My friends have things to talk about. Private things." I asked her, half joking, half breaking. "So why's Cole always welcome?" She scoffed. "You think you and Cole are even comparable?" The birthday party was a turning point. We drank. We laughed. Games. Music. Ridiculous inside jokes I actually felt part of. Near midnight, someone from my team clapped me on the back. "You know, Ethan, we always say the same thing about you behind your back." I raised an eyebrow. "Do I want to know?" Another coworker chimed in with a laugh. "That you're perfect, except you're boring as hell." More laughter. I blinked. "Seriously," she said, smiling. "You're always reliable, super helpful, but we never see you. You never hang out, never stay for drinks. We thought you were just cold." Someone added. "Turns out, you're actually kind of great." I couldn't help it. I laughed. Full-bodied, real. They were right. Back then, I rushed home after work. Afraid Jasmine would be lonely. Afraid she'd think I didn't care. Now? Why the hell had I tried so hard? She had her circle. Her nights out. Her secrets. So maybe I was allowed some joy, too. After dinner, a bunch of us went to the spa at a fitness club one of them belonged to. Steam rooms. Massages. Even some off-key karaoke in the lounge. It was absurd and healing. Jasmine called. Multiple times. I turned on Do Not Disturb. Once, I had offered to pick her up late at night. Worried she'd be alone, unsafe. She had laughed. "Don't be dramatic. I'm surrounded by friends. I'll be fine." So now? She could wait. We didn't leave until nearly 11. As we were heading out, one of my coworkers nudged me. "Dude. She's here." "Who?" "Jasmine. She's in the lobby. She said one of us sent her your location." I headed down. There she was, standing under the warm yellow lights of the spa entrance, arms crossed, eyes scanning. When she saw me, her face changed. "You didn't drink too much, did you?" she asked, noticing the flush in my cheeks. I waved a hand dismissively. "No. Just a little red wine. I always flush, even with a sip." She offered to drive me home. Insisted, actually. Said she didn't want me taking an Uber. On the drive home, Jasmine kept her eyes on the road, fingers tapping the steering wheel. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, "So this is what it feels like, to wait on someone." I gave a soft, humorless laugh. Didn't answer. Didn't need to. When we reached my apartment building, she parked and cut the engine. There was a long pause. Then, "Can I come up? Just for a bit?" I turned to her, expression flat. The kind of expression that says I've already left, even if my body's still here. "No." I let the silence hang. "It's too small," I added. "Only fits me and Sunny." Her face faltered. I could see the confusion, the slow click of realization. I leaned in slightly, voice low and sharp. "But hey, since I'm not around, maybe ask Cole if he's found a job yet. You could always let him stay over for a few days." The temperature in the car dropped. She didn't explode. Didn't accuse. Just looked, embarrassed. "You've been drinking." I smiled. Exactly. Drunk words, sober truths. That night changed something. Not just in her. In me. Something irreversible had quietly snapped back into place. For years, I'd orbited her like a satellite, drawn in, tugged around, trying desperately to belong in her gravity. But now? I was out of orbit. When my lease ended, I had no choice but to move back into the shared house. And Jasmine? Suddenly, she cared. She cooked. She waited for me to come home. She canceled brunches, skipped girls' nights, even left group chats early just to vacuum the living room. At first, I was stunned. Then uneasy. I told her she didn't need to do all that. I was working late. New responsibilities. Even weekends at the firm. She just smiled and said, "Text me when you're on your way." That's enough. She started making herbal soups. Googled recipes, even bought a slow cooker. One evening, she placed a steaming bowl of chicken broth in front of me. It was perfect, rich, fragrant, comforting. Far better than the scorched disaster from years ago that nearly burned down the kitchen. That time, she was laughing on the phone with Cole, barely stirring the pot. Half present. Barely there. But this? She'd paid attention. She'd tried. And yet. As I sipped the soup, something inside me stayed hollow. It was objectively delicious. But I couldn't taste a single note of joy. Not just my sense of taste. Everything was off. My skin no longer registered her touch. My eyes didn't linger on her body. My ears tuned out her voice like background static. Once, I would have given anything just to crawl into bed next to her, to feel her heartbeat sync with mine. Now? I looked at her face, and it felt like looking at a stranger wearing a familiar costume. She started dressing differently. Low necklines. New perfume. Subtle cues I was meant to follow. But nothing stirred in me. Not even physically. And that's when I knew. It wasn't a decision. It wasn't a choice. It was a fact. My body had already left her long before my mind caught up. Jasmine sat beside me one night, trying not to cry, but a single tear slipped down the corner of her eye. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to wipe it away. I didn't even flinch. What scared me most wasn't that I didn't hurt. It was that I didn't feel anything. A flicker of guilt? Maybe. But mostly fear. Fear that I'd become someone who couldn't love her, even if I tried. She asked to sleep beside me that night. I let her. But I turned the lights on. Sat at the desk. Opened my laptop. And started working. The phone rang once. Cole. Then it stopped. No voicemail. No follow-up. Just a single tone, like the shadow of a presence that still hadn't gotten the hint. But instead of rage or jealousy, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. The kind that makes your limbs heavy, your breath slow, your thoughts light. I couldn't stay in that house another second. By 4 a.m., I had moved to the couch. Jasmine was still awake, somewhere in the dark behind that closed bedroom door. Then I heard it. Sobbing. Uncontrolled. Raw. It didn't move me. I stood. Dressed quietly. Opened my phone and searched nearby hotels. No single rooms left. Didn't matter. I booked a $500 double. Walked out without saying goodbye. And when the hotel door clicked shut behind me, I felt it fully. Freedom. The kind that fills your lungs with clean air. The kind that makes the stars feel closer. That's when I realized. When you slam a door, you want someone to chase you. But when you close it gently, it means you don't plan on coming back. In the days that followed, Jasmine changed tactics. She acted as if nothing had happened. No tears. No breakdowns. Just warmth. Polite curiosity. Small talk. She asked about work. Asked about my day. Asked about things she used to shut down the second they left my mouth: tennis, scale models, my movie reviews. All the parts of me she used to ignore, now suddenly worth investigating. But it didn't bring us closer. It just exhausted me. So I started staying late at the office. Volunteered for more cases. Sometimes I didn't go home at all, slept on the couch in the break room with a case file as a pillow. I wanted to tell her the truth. To make it simple. You don't need to do this. I already want to leave. People don't walk away because of a single fight. Or a single insult. Or a single mistake. They walk away because of the unseen, the unacknowledged, the unfixed, over time. Like hairline fractures in a dam, expanding quietly until the whole thing crumbles with a single gust. You only see the collapse. You never noticed the erosion. The next month, I made a conscious effort to avoid her. I shifted my schedule. Left earlier. Came home later. Took meetings across town when I didn't need to. She noticed. She started waiting outside my office. Polite. Quiet. Sometimes just sitting in her car with a coffee, hoping to run into me. Her voice had changed, softened. No edge. No pride. "Ethan, can we just talk?" I kept my distance. Told her gently. We need space. We both knew what that meant. We both knew there was no coming back. The love had died. I wasn't chasing it anymore. And she wasn't giving it CPR. She was just afraid to let it be buried. Jasmine couldn't face the truth. That someone who once begged to stay now couldn't wait to go. So she kept showing up. Waiting. Hoping. Because to accept my absence was to admit this ending had been written long ago. And she just hadn't read it until now. I took on more work that day. Voluntarily. The kind of buried myself alive kind of busy that made time blur. A colleague brought me takeout and sat across from me as I flipped through briefs. She looked out the window. Rain's getting bad. Then, after a beat, so casual I almost missed it. Your fiancé's downstairs. Says she doesn't dare come in. Should I go get her? My heart jumped. I stood so fast I nearly knocked over my coffee. Grabbed an umbrella and ran. It was pouring. The kind of rain that made the world look grayscale. And there she was. Jasmine. Standing by the building entrance like a drenched, ruined flower. Hair matted to her face. Coat soaked through. Mascara trailing faint lines down her cheeks. I pulled her inside. Are you out of your mind? Even the security guard looked startled. I handed her a towel, gently started drying her face. She blinked at me, eyes wide, almost gleeful. Ethan, you still care. And for a second, just a second, there was that flicker in her eyes. The old confidence. The belief that her pain was always enough to bring me back. I froze. Then pulled my hands away. Wait until the rain lets up. Then go home. She stared at me. Her lip trembled. About Cole. I wasn't thinking. I didn't mean for any of that to happen. Nothing really happened. I winced. That name. Even hearing it made my skin crawl. I tossed the towel on the table. I don't want your explanations. If you want to punish yourself, go ahead. But leave me out of it. That hit her. She wasn't expecting cruelty. Her face hardened, lips pressed tight. What do I have to do to make this right? We're engaged, Ethan. You can't just walk away over something so. She hesitated. But the words had already spilled. So small. I blinked. Small? She saw the change in my expression. Tried to recover. I didn't mean it like that. But she did. Somewhere deep down, she did. Even now, even after everything, she still believed I was overreacting. Still saw herself as the one who was being noble. Still thought I was the one who couldn't let things go. I took a step back. She was unraveling. I just don't understand, she whispered. If I didn't do anything with him, why is everything falling apart? And there it was. On her face. Genuine confusion. As if she'd rewritten history so many times she actually believed it. Maybe she truly didn't understand. Didn't understand why I remained distant, why her apologies and tenderness no longer pulled me back like they used to. In her mind, she'd already stepped down from her pedestal. She'd cried. She'd cooked. She'd waited in the rain. What more could I want? But did she really never stop to ask? Had I ever needed? Did she think I never had friends asking me out for drinks? Did she believe I never felt lonely, never broke down, never longed for someone to cradle my hurt? I did. But I made choices. At every turn. Group dinners. 3 people, max, never one-on-one with another woman. Female coworkers with broken laptops. I kept my distance. Let IT handle it. Because I was taken. I acted taken. I chose her. I sacrificed the freedoms people said men would never give up. And in return, I got Jasmine's lectures. Jasmine's eye rolls. Jasmine's guilt trips. Her disappearing act. She waited in the rain. So did I. I had an abscess in my jaw once. Swollen gums, fever, couldn't close my mouth properly. I sat alone in a cold hospital hallway while couples murmured to each other, hands held, heads leaned close. I called her. Asked if she could come. Her voice snapped through the phone. I told you to stop overthinking everything. I told you to get that tooth pulled a month ago. You waited, now it's infected. What do you want me to do, feel sorry for you? I wanted to beg her. Not for forgiveness. For softness. Just a little human warmth. But then I heard his voice, Cole's, in the background. Loud. Laughing. Jasmine. Why's your character just standing there? Let's go. I dropped the phone. It hit the tile floor and the screen shattered. I was sitting there, sick, shivering, alone. And she was playing video games with him. The infection cleared. The memory didn't. That's why I don't play games anymore. Not even casually. Some scars don't fade. If she thought I was cruel, I decided to be honest. For once. I forwarded her the Rolex photo Cole posted, the one visible only to me. Captioned in that smug, calculated tone he always used. Why did he post this, Jasmine? Even after all your in-person explanations, why did he send this out when he was drunk? No answer. Then I asked the real question. Small. Quiet. Pathetic. You've been doing all this to make me happy. But Jasmine, did you even know? I hate soup. Silence. She looked stunned. For once, she didn't cry. Didn't argue. She just stood there. And then, without a word, she disappeared into the rain. I stood there for a moment, letting the silence settle. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for too long. I went home. Not to sleep. But to talk. To end it clean. To do right by both of us. I walked up the stairs slowly, rain still dripping from my collar. I opened the door. And found nothing. No Jasmine. No suitcase. No note. Just absence. Total, echoing absence. By noon the next day, I got a call from Cole. Jasmine's in the hospital, he said, voice tight. She drank herself sick. Started vomiting blood. Emergency room. Critical. Acute alcohol poisoning. I didn't even grab my coat, just ran. When I arrived, she was in a private room, pale and barely breathing. Tubes. Monitors. The kind of fragile you never imagined seeing in someone you once loved. Ethan. Her voice was barely a whisper. I didn't think you'd come. I'm sorry. For worrying you. She looked broken. Truly, deeply broken. And for once, her words didn't carry pride or performance, just raw, unguarded humanity. Before I could speak, Cole's voice cracked through the room like a whip. You son of a bitch. He threw a punch, hard and fast. Right across the jaw. I stumbled backward, tasted blood. She was soaked to the bone last night, and then she downed 3 bottles of wine, crying herself sick. Look what you did to her. I wiped my mouth. Stepped forward slowly. Looked straight at Jasmine, not him. You'd rather destroy yourself than sit down and have a real conversation with me? Why? Why keep running? She blinked back tears. Her voice was paper thin. Can we talk, when I'm feeling better? I nodded once. Sure. I turned to leave. Ethan, she called after me. Can you stay a little longer? It was a soft, aching question. And for a split second, I almost turned around. But then Cole stepped between us. She doesn't need you here. She's better off without someone like you. I paused. Stared at him. Then smiled. Quiet. Hollow. You see? I was always the extra one. Jasmine didn't come home after she was discharged. Instead, she texted. Doctor says I need to avoid stress. Emotional triggers. Please don't visit. Polite. Distant. The kind of message you send to a colleague, not a fiancé. Meanwhile, the bruises from Cole's punch hadn't faded. My jaw throbbed every time I spoke, so I kept quiet. I sat on the couch with a Ziploc full of ice pressed to my face. Somewhere between numbness and pain, I noticed something. The ice was melting. turning into water. Cool, then lukewarm. Then nothing. And in that moment, I finally understood. That's exactly what we were. Jasmine and me. At first, burning with intensity. Then cooling. Then vanishing. No flame. No smoke. Just water. Weightless. Gone. And yet, a question crept into my mind, uninvited. Was I overreacting? Was I too harsh? Too proud? Too late? It was junior year. One night, during a break in the studio, the classroom buzzing around us, I leaned over and gently tapped Jasmine on the shoulder with the tip of my pen. Softly, almost without thinking, I asked. "Do you want to be with me?" She blinked, confused at first. Then her face shifted, surprise, then shyness, and finally that sweet flicker of something warm and blooming. I still remember that moment with painful clarity. That look on her face. And I remember the rest, too. After graduation, I packed my life into boxes and moved across state lines, just to be closer to her. She was waiting at the station. Threw her arms around me and sobbed into my jacket like I was home. One Christmas Eve, right after she finished her grad school exams, I flew in unannounced. She opened the door, and there I was, holding the tiny kitten she'd been talking about for weeks. Under the glow of string lights and the soft shimmer of the tree, I looked her in the eyes and said, "Once we've settled into our jobs, let's get married." We went house hunting together. The agent asked her what kind of floor plan she liked. She didn't even hesitate. Leaning into me, she smiled and said, "Don't ask me. My husband gets to decide." She was always good to me. As long as Cole wasn't around. Linda once told me. She didn't cheat. You've had years together. Barely a single fight. And you're throwing it all away because she had a few meals and a few chats with another guy. But she didn't understand. It wasn't about the meals. Or the chats. It was the fixation. The lingering presence. The emotional orbit she never escaped. We were moving forward. Steadily, quietly, responsibly. A future was right there, waiting to be built. And yet, why did she always look back? I keep thinking of that night in the classroom. The noise. The chalk dust. Her blinking, uncertain eyes. Then, out of nowhere, she nodded. And I smiled, relieved. Twisted my pen between my fingers and said, "Next time don't be shy about asking for help. You've got a boyfriend now." God, I want to go back to that moment. To the way she looked at me like I just handed her the moon. She texted me the other day. Said the way I looked at her had changed. Said the light was gone from my eyes. And maybe she was right. There was a time she was pure light to me. Brilliant. Warm. Impossible to look away from. But now? Now it's like trying to recall a dream. You remember how it felt, but not what it looked like. Maybe that light wasn't hers. Maybe it was mine, reflecting back when I first saw her. I finally cracked. I wrote her. "You can't let go of him. But I can't live like this. I won't. I've tried to be calm. To be rational. To look like the strong one. To walk away with grace. But the truth is, the night you turned your back on me, something inside me split open. And I've been bleeding ever since. I smoked through the night. One cigarette after another, trying to burn through the ache. Trying to erase the image of her heart never fully being mine. It starts with little things. Disappointment. Distance. Resentment. Silence. And then, finally, something breaks. And there's no putting it back together. Yes, I still love her. But I know we can't go back. Love isn't endless. It wears down. Runs dry. Leaves residue. And when it's gone, all that's left is memory. A classroom. A shoulder tap. A pen spinning between my fingers. Her eyes meeting mine. That was the beginning. And this is the end. It was time for Thomas's follow-up. I took the day off and brought him to the hospital. Jasmine still hadn't reached out to see me face to face. After the checkup, as we sat in the waiting room, Linda glanced up at me and said, "You and Jasmine aren't getting any younger. Maybe it's time to settle down." I hesitated. Then I gave her the only answer that felt honest. Maybe we're just not meant to be. She didn't push. Didn't argue. Just let out a long, tired sigh. "I just want you to be happy, Ethan. To be with someone who takes care of you. And I don't want you to lose yourself in the process." I nodded. Then, unexpectedly, tears welled in my eyes. I blinked quickly, but they came anyway. Quiet. Relentless. That weekend, I took them both on a short trip. 3 days. Lakeside walks, old photos, quiet dinners. It felt like something I needed to do, for them, and for myself. When it was time to say goodbye, we took a picture together at the train station. I posted it on Instagram. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. "Jasmine." Voice call. "Your parents were in town?" "Yeah." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I posted it. And anyway. You're the one who said you didn't want to see them again. You said if they did, they'd just start pushing for a wedding." My parents loved Jasmine. Not just politely. Genuinely. They thought marriage was a kind of security, like once it happened, everything would settle. They just wanted to know I was safe. Chosen. But Jasmine once told me, "Marriage is a trap. Once I'm in, your parents will expect me to slow down, stop chasing my career, answer questions I don't want to answer." After that, I never brought it up again. That night, I stood outside our apartment door. Tired. Keys in hand. I messaged her before walking in. "I'll be there in 5. Don't stall. We need to talk." When I opened the door, she was waiting. She turned toward me suddenly, eyes wide, voice trembling. "Ethan. Let's get married. Right now." I froze. "What?" She stepped forward, rushing the words out. "I've thought about it over and over. And I realized, I can lose anything else. My job. My pride. My friends. But not you." For a moment, I just stared at her. That should have meant something. It should have cracked something open. But instead, I just felt tired. Like someone who'd already crossed the finish line long after the crowd had gone home. For so long, it was just me, giving. And her, receiving. And somehow, that was the rhythm. Until I couldn't keep dancing anymore. She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Ethan, will you marry me?" Her voice barely held together. "No." I said it clearly. Not coldly. Not angrily. Just, finally. She blinked. Something in her fell. But she didn't break. There were no tears. No begging. No tantrum. Just quiet understanding. Delayed. But real. Because by then, she knew. She was no longer losing something. She had already lost it. She steadied herself against the arm of the sofa, as if trying to stay upright not just in body, but in heart. Her voice trembled. Was it the day of Thomas's surgery? I didn't answer. Was it when I gave the watch to Cole? Still, I said nothing. She took a shaky breath. Or, was it when I didn't know you hated onions? I sighed. A long, tired breath. The kind you take before the end. Jasmine, I said quietly. You're not stupid. You know exactly what this is. I understand what Cole meant to you. Unresolved feelings. That kind of heartbreak takes time to fade. But every time he showed up, you forgot I existed. You let the line blur. You made space for him in your life, in ways that left no room for me. And I stayed. Loyal. Honest. All in. Like love was a promise I had to bleed for. And you? You treated me like a dog waiting on the porch. She broke then. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I know now. I know I was wrong. I love you. I only love you. I shook my head. No, Jasmine. You don't. You pushed me away. Again and again. And each time, I told myself not to take it personally. You knew when I was hurting. You felt it. But the only thing you feared was him seeing it. What were you trying to prove? That you were stronger without me? That you could make him jealous? That you could hold on to both of us until you figured out who you really wanted? She shook her head. Desperate. Silent. And that's when it hit me. She had nothing more to say. No justification. No apology deep enough. No plan to make it right. Because there was nothing left to fix. There is no such thing as suddenly falling out of love. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly. Through every brushed-off effort. Every unanswered message. Every moment I stood in front of her and she looked past me. Disappointment is what kills love. Not time. Not distance. Just enough disappointment, stacked like bricks. Until one day, there's a wall. And once the wall is high enough, you don't remember what it felt like to want to climb over it. You just walk away. There was a knock at the door. I glanced through the peephole. Cole. I turned to Jasmine. Go inside, I said quietly. You say you don't love him. Let's see if he feels the same. Cole stepped in, eyes sweeping the room. Where's Jasmine? I smirked, barely lifting the corner of my mouth. Not here. He frowned. She blocked me. I went to her office, she avoided me. What happened? His voice rose, laced with confusion and desperation. I finally ran into her at Chloe's, and she told me she was engaged. Said I needed to back off. He paused. But, you two broke up at the hospital, didn't you? For the first time, he looked unsure. Beaten, even. She's never acted like that before. She's proud, you know. Always been. But after you hung up on her, she cried so hard she couldn't stop. He gave a bitter laugh. Turns out she really did love you. Then he fixed his eyes on me. Direct. Bare. That thin layer of arrogance peeled away. Did you say yes to her proposal? I didn't flinch. I met his stare. He was nervous, grasping. He hadn't let her go. Not really. This visit wasn't casual. It was a warning shot, a last chance. You love her too? I asked. He went still. Then came the smirk. Ugly. Defeated. Yeah, he said. Turns out I was too late. You want to know why she didn't say yes to you? She asked me. Back then, when you proposed. She came to me first. And I'd just gotten divorced, he shrugged. You think I was gonna pass up the chance to ruin something beautiful? I laughed. A quiet, hollow sound. Lifted the cat off the couch. Grabbed the bag I'd packed 2 days ago. Funny, I said, you used to be allergic to cat hair. Guess you built up a tolerance. Good. Hope you use it loving her right. If you can win her back, that is. I walked to the door. Didn't look back. Just as I turned the knob, her voice tore through the apartment. Get out. I never want to see you again. Ragged. Guttural. Like something breaking for the last time. I stepped into the hall. Pulled out my phone. Scrolled to her contact. And quietly, without hesitation, I changed the name. From wife back to Jasmine Rivers. I was naive to think we could end things on good terms. Clean break was just something I told myself to feel better. I should have remembered, Jasmine was never the kind to let go easily. If she could hold on to Cole for years, of course she'd cling to me now. Maybe being dumped, by me, was, in her eyes, the ultimate humiliation. Even after I exposed Cole's true intentions, she still kept texting. Non-stop. Like some dying signal refusing to fade. Eventually, I shut off my phone. I figured I'd swing by the house in a few days, talk about getting it back. But from the way Jasmine was acting, she clearly hadn't given up. I booked a hotel for the time being. Took a long shower. Opened my laptop to catch up on some work. If she kept dragging this out, fine, I'd list the house for sale. But the moment I turned my phone back on, her call came screaming through the lock screen. Ethan, she said, I'm asking one last time. Is there really no way back for us? Without thinking, I replied. No. Silence. Then. Fine. Great. You'll regret this. At the time, I didn't get what she meant. I hadn't done anything wrong. What was there to regret? It wasn't until 3 days later that I understood. I returned to the house. Wanted to finally settle things. Tried to talk, get to the point. But Jasmine barely looked at me, scrolling through her phone. Silent, distant, cold. I sighed. Decided to grab a few clothes I'd left behind. Walked toward the bedroom. And the second I opened the door, my chest seized. The bed was a mess. That, I could have ignored. But in the trash, a pair of soiled underwear, clearly used to clean something up. The smell hit me next. Not subtle. Not faint. Still hanging in the air. The unmistakable trace of someone else. Sweat. Sex. Recent. Raw. Not mine. For a split second, I couldn't breathe. I'd always thought Jasmine was distant. Cold. A stone that refused to warm. But this was something else. Disgust churned in my gut. Not because she'd moved on. But because she'd thrown herself into filth. Because last night, while she was blowing up my phone with desperate calls, this is what she'd been doing. Was this payback? Her grand revenge? It was unbelievable. Insane. Pathetic. And for the first time, I didn't just stop loving Jasmine. I couldn't even stand the sight of her. When I walked in, the first look Jasmine gave me, it wasn't guilt. It was satisfaction. Smug. Smirking. Like she'd won. That look told me everything. And just like that, the fog lifted. I steadied my breath. The weight on my chest evaporated. I didn't care anymore. This woman, this mess she'd turned herself into, she wasn't mine to fix. I asked again, calmly. So, when are you moving out? But she twisted it around with a scoff. Oh, you saw it? Hurt your pride, didn't it? Then, leaning back like she owned the place, she added. Cole was better than you in bed anyway. There was a gleam in her eye. One I'd never seen before. Pride. Sick, twisted pride. It made my skin crawl. But I refused to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. I bit down on my jaw, kept my voice flat. Can you not embarrass yourself any further? I've seen it happen before, especially with women like Jasmine. Some people fall apart after a breakup. But others? They set themselves on fire just to make you watch. Then blame you for the flames. It's absurd logic, but it's real. And it's pathetic. Self-destruction isn't rebellion. It's just weakness wrapped in drama. I remembered the first time we made love. How I'd prepared everything like it was sacred. She'd been shy, soft, trembling in my arms. She'd whispered, "Husband," for the first time. My whole world lit up in that moment. And from then on, I treated that part of our relationship like it was holy. Always careful. Always respectful. Never once did I take her for granted. And now she was out here, sleeping with someone like Cole, raw. No protection. No shame. Just filth and ego. It made me sick. Well, I said quietly, "Congrats. You got what you wanted." She leaned back again, smug as ever, like the past few months of crying, begging, apologizing were just some performance. Then the door unlocked. Cole walked in, suitcase in hand. When he saw me, his whole face lit up with triumph. His eyes glinted. Like he'd just scored the winning goal and couldn't wait to shove it in my face. He hesitated only a second before grinning with that arrogant, slouchy swagger of his. "What, you're still here? Wanna stay for dinner?" Then he turned and kissed Jasmine. I felt it rise, hot and bitter. This sick, tightening weight in my chest. God, how fucking disgusting. After a long pause, Jasmine threw a barb my way. "He's not even worth it." I said nothing. Just stared at the two of them. So this is how it ends. Her and Cole, playing house. Like this was some victory lap. Cole picked up the keys from the side table, spinning them around his finger. "Babe," he said, "we should probably change the locks. Don't want unwelcome guests, right?" That's when I noticed. He had a copy of the front door key. Already cut. Already on his keychain. And something inside me cracked. Jasmine arched an eyebrow and gave a wild, reckless laugh. "Got it. I'll call the locksmith after dinner. What's there to be jealous about?" They were chatting in the living room like some sick sitcom couple. Cozy, sweet, affectionate, like I wasn't even standing there. And suddenly, it hit me. I was the clown. All this time, I thought she'd come to her senses. I thought she wanted to fix things. But now I saw it. That was never remorse. Just the setup. This, right here, this moment, was the punchline. They weren't falling apart. They were falling back together. And I'd been the pathetic placeholder, the in-between, the joke. I'd never felt so utterly, profoundly humiliated. I took a breath, pushing down the nausea rising in my throat. "This house," I said, voice flat, "I'm pretty sure I paid for it." Jasmine gave a short, mocking laugh. "Oh, really? So what does that make me, your live-in sex toy?" Then she leaned back, arms crossed, and threw down the next card. "This house is half mine, Ethan. You think you can kick me out just like that? Without 50 grand in my account, don't even think about it." The air turned razor sharp. My jaw locked so hard I thought it might break. Was she really going to scorch every last decent memory between us? "Don't you think that's a little low?" I asked, barely containing myself. That's when Cole swaggered forward, arms folded, like he was waiting for his cue. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. "If I were you, man," he said, all smirks and sleaze, "I'd just sign the place over to Jasmine. Call it a day. Then he gave me that smug-ass grin. Or better yet, name your price. We'll be generous. Buy the place off you. You know, now that Jasmine and I sorted out all those little misunderstandings last night in bed. He shot her a look. She laughed. Then he twisted the knife. She was mine first anyway. It's only natural she never got over me. 3 years with you? Yeah, sorry about that. Real shame. I didn't think. I just moved. My fist slammed into his jaw, and the bastard went reeling. There was no avoiding it anymore. This fight needed to happen. I could forgive Jasmine for falling out of love. Hell, I could even forgive myself for being blind, for begging. But this? Being humiliated. Taunted. Played. Having that asshole mock me like I was some beta clown? No. Absolutely not. I used to think letting go of pride, of ego, of logic was proof of love. Now I see the truth. Anyone I have to shrink myself for will never grow with me. Sometimes, love isn't lost. It was just wrong from the start. The fight wasn't just brutal. It was catastrophic. Cole lost several teeth. And I didn't walk away clean either. One cracked rib, deep bruising, and a whole lot of paperwork. By the time the cops broke it up, both sets of parents had to come down to the station to pick up their sons. I still don't know what was said behind those closed doors. But in the end, my parents forked over $200,000 as a so-called settlement to Jasmine. Only then was the case dropped. It made me sick. And our entire circle of friends blew up. Some called Jasmine disgusting. Others claimed I'd led her on, wasted her time, broken her spirit. Everyone had an opinion. None of them mattered. I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together how the hell Jasmine and I had ended up here. Fighting to ruin each other. Was it resentment? Guilt? A twisted way of reclaiming her dignity after begging me and being rejected? I couldn't figure her out. Maybe she just needed things to shatter, loud, messy, and final. So she'd feel like there was no going back. So she wouldn't let herself regret it. The door creaked open. "So, what's your plan now?" came a voice I didn't expect. Alice. "I guess, find a new place to live," I muttered, my chest tight from the rib. Jasmine said she and Cole need a month to pack up and move. She nodded, calm as ever. "Use one of my places. I've got a vacant condo, and you know how crazy my schedule is anyway, I'm barely ever home." I looked at her. Smart. Steady. Sharp eyes behind those doctor's frames. Alice had always been Jasmine's closest friend. That's how we met. But she never took sides. Not once. She remembered the smallest things, like how I was allergic to onions. She was always the one to step in when Cole crossed the line with his little provocations. "This flirty nonsense is going to blow up in your face," I remembered her warning Jasmine more than once. I'd wanted to thank her many times. But never did. Too afraid it would be misread. Too careful, too cautious. But now? Now, I had nothing left to protect. I forced a dry chuckle. "Don't you think I went too far this time?" Alice didn't even blink. "No. I think you finally stood up for yourself." That was Alice. Always clear, always blunt. No fluff. She paused. Then added, quietly. "I should mention, I've cut ties with Jasmine." I tried to smile, but it came out cracked. The stitches pulled. My ribs ached. But for the first time in weeks, I felt understood. I accepted her offer. And that's how I ended up at Alice's place. The fight put me out of commission for 2 whole months. But strangely, the forced rest didn't bother me. It felt final. Like my heart had finally stopped chasing something that wasn't real. In its place, there was space to breathe again. To exist without that constant ache. But recovery wasn't a walk in the park. The anesthesia messed with my system, and the antibiotics left me dazed and drowsy most of the time. My head felt like it was stuffed with wet cotton. But at some point, I noticed. There was a cool cloth on my forehead. Someone had been caring for me. At first, I figured it was my mom. She insisted on staying to help. But when I woke again, the smell of homemade chicken soup wafted in from the kitchen. My body didn't hurt as much. I lay there for a while, listening to birds outside the window, letting the quiet settle. Then I reached for my phone. Dozens of messages. Missed calls. Coworkers. College buddies. People who just wanted the tea. One of them had sent me a screenshot of Jasmine's latest Instagram post. She was tending to Cole's bruised jaw. The caption, "You are my forever." My eyes scanned down to the comment thread. Cole had replied. "Anyone sends me his name again, don't blame me for cutting you off." I set the phone down. Swung my legs over the bed, wincing. Every muscle in my ribs barked in protest. I shuffled toward the kitchen, rubbing sleep from my eyes. Alice stood by the stove, watching a pot of soup simmer. She glanced over her shoulder when she saw me. "Linda made this," she said. "She went out to grab more groceries. Told me to make sure you drank it while it's still warm." She poured it into a bowl and walked it over. I tried to reach for it, but pain ripped through my side. I hissed and froze mid-motion. "Stop squirming," she said gently. "I'll feed you." Her voice was soft, almost teasing, but her hands were confident and steady. She helped me sit in a recliner, propped up a pillow behind me with the kind of care that came second nature to her. "Don't get the wrong idea," she added, half smiling. "We had a whole clinical course on this." She poured the soup into a smaller bowl. Cooled it down by blowing on the spoon. Even touched it to her lips to check the temperature. Then, spoon by spoon, she fed me. I'd never been fed by a woman before. Not like this. Not with this kind of tenderness. A strange warmth pooled in my chest. Somewhere between gratitude and guilt. Jasmine never did this. Not once. When Alice finished, she dabbed at my mouth with a napkin. Our eyes met. And something shifted. A flicker of something unspoken. Startling. Real. My pulse skipped. I cursed myself silently. "Seriously, Ethan? Now? You're actually catching feelings?" Before the silence could stretch too far, Linda walked in and broke the moment. "Feeling any better?" Alice shot up from the chair like a kid caught in class. Mumbled something, and disappeared down the hall, cheeks pink. I leaned back, watching her go. And for the first time in a long time, I felt warm. Maybe, just maybe, you really do meet two people in your life. One who leaves you breathless. And one who lets you breathe again. Linda had tidied everything up. But she ran into one tiny problem. Sunny, my cat. Not because she didn't like animals. But because Sunny, the clingy little furball, had a very specific routine. The moment he saw me, he'd leap straight into my arms, rubbing his head against my chin like a baby demanding affection. What no one expected. He trotted straight up to Alice, flopped over at her feet, and exposed his belly like she'd raised him. Alice chuckled and leaned down to scratch his stomach. "He's filthy," she said softly. "Come on, buddy. Let's get you cleaned up." She scooped him into her arms and walked toward the bathroom, her voice light and playful. Linda helped me lie down, pulling the blanket up to my chest. "You've been through a lot," she said quietly. I paused. Didn't know what to say. Then she added. You gave Jasmine a rare treasure. She barely blinked. But she tossed you a second-hand toy, and you clutched it like it was gold. Her voice wasn't angry, just sad. Disappointed, maybe. I swallowed hard. Mom, please don't. I just want you to remember, she said gently. The right person is the one standing right in front of you. Not the one you keep chasing in circles. Of course I knew what she meant. But I also knew this. I could never be Cole. If love had to be stolen, forced, or schemed into existence, I didn't want it. Yes, I'd loved Jasmine humbly. I'd bent for her. I'd bled for her. But I still had my line. If winning someone meant losing myself, I'd rather walk away. I laid back against the pillow, resolute. It was time to delete every last memory of Jasmine from my life. But just as I picked up my phone, Instagram opened to her latest post. She'd gone to see the re-release of The Notebook. The photo. Two hands tightly clasped together in a darkened theater. Her caption read. The first time I saw this film, I was in college. Now it's back in theaters, and the one holding my hand is still you. I stared at the image. Then looked down at my own phone screen. My ticket to that same showing was already booked on Fandango. Somewhere in my archive. I remembered a film review I'd written years ago. You don't get to choose whether you love someone or not. Love chooses you. Like Noah and Ali. No matter how far they drift, they always find their way back. Before I even realized it, my face was soaked with tears. And for the first time in a long time, I felt true sorrow for myself. Not for losing her, but for how long I'd held on. Alice came back into the room, carrying Sunny in her arms. She looked like she was ready to leave. But my mom stepped in. Alice, stay for dinner, won't you? Alice smiled politely. I've got a few things I need to finish up tonight, ma'am. Linda turned to me immediately, eyes flashing. Ethan, say something. She's your friend, isn't she? That wasn't a suggestion. It was a warning. A very obvious one. I looked at Alice. Softly, I said, stay. Just listen to my mom. She let out a quiet laugh. All right. I'll stay. But let me clean Sunny's paws first. She knelt down and began gently wiping Sunny's feet. I used to have a cat just like him, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He ran off years ago. Something stirred in me. Did he have any markings? I asked casually. Alice didn't think much of it. Yeah, actually, he had a little heart-shaped spot under his front leg. I used to joke with my boss that maybe one day he'd help me find true love. She chuckled to herself. Then suddenly stopped. As if a switch flipped. Her eyes met mine, sharp, wide, full of realization. She grabbed Sunny's front leg, lifted it gently. And there it was. A perfect little heart-shaped birthmark, nestled under the fur. I stared at her, speechless. He's the one I adopted, I finally managed to say. She dropped to her knees, pulling Sunny into a hug, murmuring, thank you, over and over. Tears welled in her eyes. Guess it really was fate, I said quietly. Linda grinned like the ending of a rom-com. The next few days passed quietly. My ribs healed faster than expected. Alice, despite her demanding shifts at the hospital, came by whenever she could. We didn't talk much about Jasmine. Until one day, she gave me an update I wasn't expecting. Word is, she said, Jasmine might be pregnant. I froze. And Cole? I asked. He's working at her company now. Strutting around like he owns the place. But he's already rubbed people the wrong way. Alice rolled her eyes. He was never exactly brilliant in school. He coasted on that smirk and a few cheap tricks. I didn't say anything for a moment. That old bitterness crept back in. $20,000. My parents had shelled it out, to her, just to keep things quiet. And for what? I didn't cheat. I didn't betray. I didn't lie. Yet somehow I was the one left bleeding, both literally and figuratively, while Jasmine walked away with money in her pocket and a fresh chapter with a conman. The more I thought about it, the more something didn't sit right. Cole's divorce. He came back into town with his tail between his legs. If everything had gone smoothly, someone like him wouldn't return without some bragging rights. Which meant there was more to that story than anyone was letting on. While I focused on physical rehab, I also quietly pulled some strings to dig into Cole's divorce records. Alice kept coming by, often helping my mom cook. To my surprise, this cool, no-nonsense woman could whip up a steak that would make Gordon Ramsay jealous. Seared to perfection, butter-basted, just the right touch of rosemary. Even Linda, my mom, started dropping not-so-subtle hints. She's got a good head on her shoulders, she'd say. Smart, steady, can cook. What more do you want? But I wasn't ready. Not because of Alice, she was incredible. But because of me. The scars Jasmine left behind hadn't fully healed. And after everything, I'd finally come to understand. Liking someone? You can do that alone. But love? Real love takes two people. Willingly, wholeheartedly, meeting in the middle. And right now, I wasn't ready to meet anyone halfway. About a month later, I packed my things, and Sonny, and moved back into my old house. The scene that greeted me was almost funny. Jasmine had smashed the flat-screen TV. Shards of glass still sparkled under the coffee table. But I didn't flinch. Didn't blink. Didn't feel. And strangely, neither did Sonny. The cat who once pounced into Jasmine's arms at the jingle of her keys. Now just stood there. Tail still. Ears flat. Blank eyes. Jasmine noticed too. She crouched down, tried to reach out. Sonny didn't move. Animals don't lie. They don't pretend. Sometimes, they understand things we humans refuse to see. Jasmine looked up, voice softer than I remembered. You're really disappointed in me, huh? I couldn't tell what game she was playing now. But I wasn't interested in guessing anymore. I looked her in the eye. No. Not just in you. In everything about you. Your voice. Your perfume. Even your toothbrush, I don't want it in my house. I've already listed the place for sale, I added. No need for a scene. And the moment I said it, I felt something shift. There was no hesitation in my voice. No ache in my chest. No shame. Just clarity. Oddly, Jasmine didn't lash out. She didn't scream or cry or break something else. She just stood there. Eyes flickering. Mouth slightly open. Like she had a dozen things to say, but knew none of them would land. She turned and walked out. No slamming doors. No drama. But I could tell, she was carrying the weight of 1,000 unsaid words. And I didn't care to know any of them. I'd heard through friends what happened after. Cole had caused a rift between Jasmine and her parents. Her closest girlfriends cut ties with her. Even her business, once the envy of her peers, was slipping, suppliers backing out, employees leaving, numbers red. But I didn't feel anything. Not pity. Not revenge. Just a quiet finality. As the door clicked shut behind her, that faint metallic snap. It felt like the last echo of something long dead. That was always our rhythm, wasn't it? She stepped in, I stepped back. She clawed forward, I bent. Push, pull. Hurt, heal. Until one day, you don't heal anymore. You just stop feeling. And when the heart finally goes numb, there's no more pain. Only peace. She left. And I forgot her. Maybe that was how it was always meant to end. That evening, Alice came by with a quiet smile and a thermos of chicken soup. She handed me the bowl directly this time, warm between both hands. Then, almost casually, she asked, "Ethan, would you come with me to the hospital tomorrow? They're offering free legal consultations, and I think I could use a second opinion." I didn't even hesitate. "Sure," I said. "Happy to." What I didn't expect was to run into Jasmine and Cole there. Jasmine blinked, clearly surprised to see me. But she said nothing. Not a word. Cole, on the other hand, well, he couldn't resist being Cole. Grinning smugly, he turned to the doctor. "Doc, you told us last week to come in for a monthly checkup. So, how's the baby? Is she really pregnant? Is everything healthy? The ultrasound looks good?" Then, pretending to just notice me, he turned, smirked, and said, Well, well. Look who it is, an old friend. If this had happened even a few months ago, I'd have lost it. Stormed out. Thrown a punch. Something. But something inside me had changed. Maybe it was the quiet strength of Alice. Maybe it was simply growing up. But suddenly, it felt like I had armor. A soft, steady armor built not out of rage, but peace. I smiled back, calm as ever. "Yeah, we go way back," I said. "Congrats on the baby. Glad to return your woman, fully intact, after keeping her fed and housed for 3 years." Cole froze, his face twitching for just a second before he forced the smugness back on. I'd spent years being the only one playing fair while he got dirty. But maybe it was time I learned the value of getting a little dirty too. In a suit and tie, with a smile. I used to think the opposite of love was hate. Then I thought it was indifference. Now, it's forgetting. And when the memories are gone, when I don't even flinch at the sight of her, I finally get to be who I was always meant to be. A damn good lawyer. And a man with nothing left to lose. Cole's eyes darkened. "Let's be honest. If you weren't such a loser, Jasmine and I would have never happened." I leaned forward slightly, tone light but razor-edged. "Right. Like a pair of old shoes, stepped in shit, rinsed off, and called a limited edition. Just hope the sole holds. Because once it tears, even designer trash ends up in the dumpster." That hit hard. He slammed the table with a thud that echoed down the hallway. "Who the hell are you calling trash?" I didn't blink. Just stared at him. Because I knew something he didn't. Yesterday, I received the results of the private investigation. His divorce wasn't some vague falling out. It was messy. Gambling. Cheating. Even drug use. His ex-wife wasn't just mad, she was coming for blood. Litigation was already underway. Cole didn't move back to the States. He ran. Jasmine, finally breaking her silence, stepped in. "Enough. There are other patients waiting. Keep your drama to yourselves." Cole gave her an annoyed glance, then turned back to me with his signature fake smile. All show. All hollow. But I'd already won this round. Not with fists. But with facts. But just as the tension began to settle, Alice glanced down at the report, and her expression changed. Suddenly deadly serious, she turned to Jasmine. "Something's wrong," she said. Seriously wrong. It was like a thunderclap in a silent room. Cole sprang up, slamming his palm against the table. "What the hell are you talking about?" But Alice didn't flinch. Instead, she took a step forward, arms crossed, and said coldly, "You know exactly what I'm talking about. Unless you want to pretend you don't." She tossed the report across the table. It slid to a stop right in front of him. I caught a glimpse as it landed, and froze. Positive. For an STD. And not a mild one. Cole's face drained of color in an instant. His expression twisted, panic, guilt, fear all at once. And then, right in front of Jasmine, he stammered. "Alice, come on, you're blowing this out of proportion. That was months ago. I already got treatment." Beads of sweat formed on his temple, glistening under the hospital lights. He turned desperately to Jasmine. "Baby, listen to me. This was before. When I was abroad. I didn't even know. I got it from just a mistake, a stupid one. Please, you have to believe me." Alice cut in, voice like ice. "Abroad? A mistake? Are you joking?" She pointed to the results. "You're already in stage 2. You think anyone's dumb enough to believe that just happened by accident? Who exactly do you think you're fooling?" Jasmine stood frozen, eyes wide. Her mouth opened. But no words came. Her fingers trembled violently as she raised a hand, pointing at Cole. But she couldn't even form a sentence. Then, with a sudden, furious motion, she hurled her handbag to the floor. The medical report fluttered beside it. Tears flooded down her cheeks. I stood there, stunned. I'd thought I was done with these two. Thought my chapter with them was closed. But fate, it seemed, had one last twist to throw in. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a flicker of grim satisfaction. Poetic justice, in its cruelest form. But then, watching Jasmine break down like that. Her pride shattered, her dignity stripped bare in public. Something twisted in my chest. No matter how much she'd hurt me, I knew one thing for sure. Jasmine was always proud. Too proud for this. And no one deserves this. Her body shook. Her eyes, fury, disbelief, pain all tangled into one, burned with a helpless fire. But she couldn't speak. Not a single word. Cole panicked. "I didn't know," he shouted, voice cracking. "She cheated on me. That's how I got it. I swear, I had no idea she was sick. That's why I left Europe, I didn't find out until I got here." And then, desperate beyond reason, he lunged forward and grabbed Jasmine's arm. "Please. Jasmine, I'm begging you. We can fix this. Let's get treatment, start over, okay? Please." His grip was too tight. His voice too wild. And suddenly, all eyes in the clinic were on them. I'd had enough. My voice came out cold, sharp enough to cut through the chaos. "Cole, your divorce records are public. Should I just pull a copy from the courthouse and hand it to the press? See how far your reputation gets you then?" The blood drained from his face. But before he could speak, Jasmine ripped her arm from his grasp and snapped. "You manipulative bastard. You planned this from the start, didn't you? You waited till I was drunk, took advantage of me, and then blackmailed me, with my family, my career. What the hell was I supposed to do? You trapped me. And now you want sympathy?" The room went silent for a beat. And then, Jasmine's rage ignited all over again. Her eyes darted to the tray near Alice. Before anyone could react, she grabbed the surgical scalpel and charged at Cole. I didn't think. I just moved. Even with my injury still healing, I lunged forward and threw my arms around her. Agony shot through my side like a knife, but I held on. "Are you insane? Do you want to kill him?" Cole stood frozen, too stunned to run. Jasmine thrashed in my arms, screaming incoherently. And then, pain exploded through me. She broke free. I collapsed against the counter, gasping. But just before she could reach Cole. Smack! Alice's hand cracked across Jasmine's face like a gunshot. Her voice was sharp, cold, and furious. You want to be angry? Fine. But let's be real, you had no boundaries long before this. You lost your dignity the second you kept crawling back. You let him destroy you, and now you want to destroy everything else? She stepped between Jasmine and me, her eyes blazing. You don't get to hurt Ethan just because you're hurting. He just had surgery. You tear that incision open again, and I swear, you'll wish the scalpel had gone the other way. Jasmine's body collapsed. She slumped to the floor, sobbing, guttural, defeated. Alice didn't say another word. She pulled Jasmine up and led her into the staff lounge. A few minutes passed before the door creaked open again. Jasmine stood in the doorway, face pale, lips trembling. Ethan, she whispered. I really messed up. Her voice wasn't dramatic this time. It was quiet. Broken. I stared at her, unsure what to feel. Something inside me shifted. She seemed like a stranger to me now. After a long silence, she added softly. I'm sorry. This time, it felt real. Sincere. Because I saw it in her eyes. The kind of emptiness that comes when you've burned down everything you once held dear. Ashes where pride used to be. I nodded slowly, almost out of habit. But there was nothing left in my chest. No heat. No ache. No anger. Not even sympathy. Just clarity. Once, I thought I couldn't survive without her. That my heart would never be whole again. But somewhere along the way, when I realized I loved her more than she could ever love me, I'd already begun to walk away. Everything after that? Just her way of making sure we ended without even a shred of dignity left between us. I didn't want to hear those words, not anymore. Not even if Jasmine owed them to me. So I kept my voice flat, almost bored. Why are you saying this now? She hadn't expected indifference. Her expression faltered, and she began to murmur, mostly to herself. After I got with Cole, at first, I told myself I was just getting back at you. So I did everything. Played games. Binge-watched shows. I still ate like usual, sometimes even more. I didn't cry into wine at night. Didn't lose weight from heartbreak. I wore all my old clothes. Laughed with friends. Went to work like nothing changed. I let out a low chuckle. So, sounds like you were doing just fine. Her eyes turned red. No. It wasn't like that. That weekend, Cole and I went shopping. I was carrying 3 heavy bags when it hit me, like a punch to the gut. That guy who used to rush up to grab things from my hands. Who'd never let me lift a finger. Who didn't care where we were, he'd wrap an arm around me like I was the only person that mattered. He was gone. You were gone. She reached for my hand, tight, desperate. And just like that, the warmth of her palm rushed into mine. That familiar touch. That Jasmine I used to know. A part of me had waited for this exact moment for so long. But now that it was here, I didn't want it. I tried to pull away. She held on tight. But then, Alice walked in. She froze in the doorway, taking it all in. Her voice was light, but the sting underneath was impossible to miss. So, you two are back together? She didn't wait for an answer. Her face stiffened. And then she turned around and walked out. The second she was gone, I yanked my hand free from Jasmine's grip. She reached again. I stepped back and snapped. Jasmine, I stepped in today because it was the right thing to do. You were about to do something reckless, violent. Someone could have died. That's not love, that's madness. I took a breath, voice low but firm. Don't confuse decency with love. Cole may have ruined half your life. But I'll be damned if I let you waste the rest of it chasing ghosts. Jasmine clung to the last straw. But I have no one else now, she pleaded. I shook my head slowly. You know what's rare in this world? Reaching for stars with bare hands. Loving someone you can't have. Among billions of people, finding me again is the rarest thing of all. I used to think that line was melodramatic. But now? I get it. Back then, I couldn't have you. Now, you can't reach me. And maybe, that was always how it was meant to be. I watched the light in her eyes dim, like a dying star. She stopped fighting. The fire faded, leaving only cold ash. So I kept going, gently, but with no room for doubt. You've seen The Notebook, right? First time, it's just a cliché. Second time, you laugh at the drama. But the third time, you realize it's actually heartbreaking. I drew in a long breath and looked straight at her. I don't know everything about Cole. But look at me. I'm the kind of person who can love with all his heart. And still choose to let go. Like how Allie knew Noah was the one. But she walked away anyway. Because sometimes, real love isn't about holding on. It's about knowing when to set it free. She stood there, drowning in quiet despair. I stood up, calm now. Tell Cole something for me, would you? He used to say, we can always fix this. But he needs to understand. Some things, once broken, can never be put back the same way. You can glue the pieces. But the cracks? They're just waiting for the next time everything falls apart. I turned and walked to the door. I didn't look back. That was it. The end. When I got back to Alice, her face was unreadable. But I could tell, she was angry. After finishing up with a patient, she looked up at me. Do you still love her? No, I replied. She scoffed. Then why did you throw yourself in front of her like that? Weren't you afraid you'd get hurt? Was she jealous? I stayed silent. Which only made her more agitated. She fired off questions, one after another. Why do you still go with her to things? Why let her hug you? Just because she got cheated on? Did you forget what she did to you? I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the calm, gentle Alice I knew. But somehow, I found her ridiculous little outburst kind of adorable. So I teased her. Well, I don't have a new girlfriend yet, do I? Bad move. Her face turned crimson. She jumped to her feet, flustered. You. She plopped back into the chair, grumbling. Ugh. Ethan, you're such an idiot. Then she stormed past me toward the door. But as she passed, she muttered without turning around. I'm not coming to your place tomorrow. We both need to cool off. I didn't eat dinner. Just sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the tulips on the balcony. And suddenly, I thought about the way Jasmine and Alice treated flowers. Jasmine would buy perfect bouquets from upscale shops, use them, then toss them when they weren't fresh anymore. Alice, though. Alice would go to the flower market, pick each one carefully, nurse them like her own children. It hit me like a quiet wave. This was the difference between liking and loving. If you like a flower, you pick it. If you love a flower, you water it. That's when I knew, Alice was in love with me. But God, how do I even tell her? I couldn't get past my own ego. Couldn't find the words, or the moment. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I called Linda. She picked up on the first ring, her voice sharp and to the point. She's a doctor, Ethan. If she won't see you, she'll still see patients. You want to get to her? Be the patient. I stayed quiet. She sighed like I was the biggest idiot alive. You moron. Chasing a girl isn't about pride. It's about not giving a damn how stupid you look. And she was right. God, she was so right. Later that night, I was flipping through my own medical file, half out of boredom, half out of habit, when I found something unexpected. Notes. Alice's handwritten notes. But not the clinical kind. These weren't about vitals or meds or post-op instructions. They were little fragments, little secrets. Day 1. When I first saw you, you were all fireworks. And I was just ash. But I'd spend a lifetime sweeping myself clean. If it meant I could stand beside your light. Day 2. This isn't some passing spark. This is moonlight. Rare. Quiet. Mine. Day 3. I wanted to tell you that day. But you gave the flowers to her. It didn't break me. I just wanted to watch you happy, even if it wasn't with me. I sat there frozen, my fingers resting on the paper. Shock and sweetness collided in my chest. Alice. She'd been there the whole time. Steady. Silent. Never asking for anything. But giving everything. Like rain. Soft, slow, constant. And before I knew it, she'd soaked into every corner of my life. The next day, I showed up in full performance mode. A pink suit. A sheer shirt underneath. Loud. Ridiculous. Intentional. When it was my turn to enter the exam room, Alice was bent over a chart, scribbling notes. Didn't even glance up. I sat down quietly. Waited. Eventually, curiosity got the best of her, and when she finally looked up, her expression froze. The pink. The transparency. The sheer audacity of it. She frowned. What the hell are you wearing? I shrugged, leaning back. Why? I just wanted to test the market, I said, then slowly unbuttoned the jacket to reveal the translucent shirt beneath. She reached for a spare blanket, panic flashing across her face. Cover up, you lunatic. I batted her hand away and calmly laid the hospital file flat between us, her handwritten notes. What do these mean? I asked. Her hand froze. Eyes darted away. Voice quiet. I wrote it wrong. Pretend it's part of the medication chart. I laughed, low and teasing. Medication, huh? Let's go to the pharmacy and see if they can fill these prescriptions. She flushed crimson, sinking into her chair. After my shift, okay? But I didn't let up. My voice went hard. No. If you walk out that door today without saying it, don't ever say it again. Alice stared at me, stunned. She'd never seen me like this, sharp-edged, unrelenting. After a long moment, she whispered, "Do I really need to say it? Didn't I already write it? I want to hear it from your mouth." She inhaled deeply, then, for some reason, really began to read the notes aloud. Word for word. Heart wide open. Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't stop. Halfway through the second page, I couldn't take it. My face was burning. "Stop," I said, flustered, holding up a hand. There was a pause. Then I asked quietly, "When did you start liking me?" Alice smiled. First glance. I raised an eyebrow. "You mean that first time when you said I was a shallow idiot?" Her grin widened. "You are kind of an idiot." And I was slow. My slowness is what let Jasmine get between us. I'm sorry. I almost lost you. I reached forward and gently tapped the tip of her nose. Linda always says there are two things you should never miss: the last train home, and the person who truly loves you. You're both, you know. The train and the person. Her eyes shimmered. I know, she said softly. And then. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up. Walked to the door. Locked it from the inside. And kissed her like my life depended on it. 6 months later. Jasmine's company collapsed. She sold off what was left and disappeared on an overseas trip. As for Cole, she personally handed him over to the police. The charges were serious. He's facing at least 10 years. Alice and I are married now. That afternoon, a small package arrived at our door. Inside, a ring. And a bank card. The ring was engraved on the inside with 2 letters. J and E. The card held exactly $200,000. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at it. Then I smiled. Handed the card to Alice without a word. Turned around. And tossed the ring into the trash.